Good evening, everyone. I hope you can all hear me okay. If you can, give me a quick wave. Good, good. There's still a few more people to sort of filtering through from the waiting room, so we'll just give it one more minute if that's okay. You'll notice as you enter that you're all on mute. That's just to avoid everybody trying to shout at the one time and getting quite noisy and quite messy. So if you do want to talk to us at any point or to ask any questions or to, whatever it might be, there's the chat function, which you can find at the bottom of the screen. So if you click on the chat function and you can enter a question or a comment in there, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can, and we'll take questions and comments and put them to our speakers and our guests at the end of the session as well. So if you do have anything you want to ask, that will be the time. So just give it one more minute. I think that's most of them through from the waiting room so far.
And you're welcome to keep your cameras on or off as well. So no pressure there.
Yeah, this session, it will be recorded. We record these sessions more to create an archive of what we do as part of this program, and also to report back to our funder as well. So if you would like not to be in that recording, you can turn your camera off by clicking the stop video button at the bottom of the screen. Okay, shall we make a start, guys?
Yep.
Let's do it. Okay, good. There may be a few more joining us in a moment, but that's okay. It shouldn't interrupt us. Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for coming. Although I'm sure you didn't come that far, you may have just walked across the room to your laptop or your tablet or phone or whatever it is. But we appreciate you making the effort to join us for this evening's event. It's a pretty special event, actually. This is International Dear Diary Day, for those of you who didn't know. And in order to celebrate that, we are launching a new resource called Dear Diary. So the two things couldn't have worked out better, even if we planned it. You'd almost think we did plan it. For those of you who don't know, my name's Niall Kerr. I'm the project manager for a project called Making the Future. And I'm based at the Nerve Centre in Derry, Londonderry. And Making the Future is a Piece 4 funded project which uses archives and collections largely as a way to explore our past, but doing so in a really unique way that puts participants and people from the community very much at the heart of all of the activity that we're doing. And Making the Future is a partnership project between ourselves at the Nerve Centre, with the Public Record Office in Northern Ireland, PRONI, with National Museums NI, and with Lennon Hall Library. And those three institutions that I mentioned at the end, PRONI, National Museums, and Lennon Hall Library, are very much three of the custodians, or the people or the organisations, I suppose, that hold the keys to our past. They have the collections and the archives and the things that tell us who we are. And then we, within the Nerve Centre, are a creative organisation who come into that mix and try to drive some change around how we can look at those collections and drive some creative programming. Making the Future as a program has been going now for just over 2 years, and there's still more than a year to go. And it explores a range of issues, everything from Women in the Archives, which we'll be hearing about this evening, through to things like the impact of the Troubles, issues around our culture, our identity, and moving forward as a society from conflict to peace. There's multiple strands to the project, all doing very different things. And it's in exploring those issues that we're enabling participants, and very much participants are key to the core, are key to the heart of what we're doing through Making the Future. Enabling those participants to take a look at where we are as a society, where we've come from, where we're at now, and to project some ideas around our future and where we're going to next. It's a very ambitious project, like I said, but at the heart of that is really innovative programming and innovative and engaging ways to look and explore our past. And some of the most innovative programs have been done by the team at PRONI, led by Laura and Lindsay, who you'll hear more about very shortly. And for those of you who met them in person, I said this in an event last week, you'll know just how powerful a duo they are, and especially when they get together. Individually, they're great. When they get together, there's it's a real tag team of brilliance and excellence when it comes to delivering these programs. And they really do make these programs quite exciting and quite innovative. And what we're launching tonight is the product of just one of those engagement programs delivered by both Lindsay and Laura at Prony earlier this year. It was probably the last program that was delivered face to face. Is that right? Before lockdown hit. So one of the last programs, and the impact. I mean, what started out as an engagement program and the opportunity for a group to come together in a shared appreciation of diaries has ended up with this launch event tonight, and this new resource called Dear Diary. And I hope that, like me, I'm sure when you see it, I'm sure you'll appreciate not only the immense amount of work that is went into producing the actual resource and what the end product is, and specifically the work that Laura has done in building this resource and just how great it is and how great it looks, but also really what's really key to it is the immense work that the participants themselves have put towards it. And I hope the immense sense of ownership that they now have over this resource, because it is a really powerful piece of work. And it's, as a project manager, it's a privilege to be able to join events like this, to hear about the great work that's going on, and to collectively showcase some of the work that we're doing as part of Making the Future. So it's my honor to be here. I'm now going to hand you over to Lindsay Gillespie. Lindsay, who's a curator with the Making the Future project at Prony, and she'll talk to you a little bit more about what's going to happen this evening. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Niall. Can I just check that everybody can hear me? Because my sound tends to be quite low. Yeah, okay, that's great. I'm going to share my screen here, but I will reiterate Niall's thanks to everyone for joining us this evening. I'm sure there's other things that you could be doing with your evening, but we're really glad that you're all here with us. So basically, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a background about what we have done with the Women in the Archives strand of Making the Future so far, and what kind of laid the foundation for the Dear Diary program itself. And then I will hand over to Laura to explain really what we did through the program and how the website came together. As Niall said, that is all Laura's really hard work that went into the website. She's done a really good job with it. And then I'm hoping that we'll be able to hear from some of our participants as well, because they are the ones that did all of the research and all of the reading and getting together with the diaries. So I'm only going to lay just the foundation of what we were doing and how we came to bring Dear Diary to life. So I will get started and try not to talk for too long. So as Niall said, there's lots of different strands of the Making the Future project, and the one that we have focused on in Prony really since we started working on the project is Women in the Archives. And it is a partnership between ourselves at Prony and then the staff in the Linhall Library as well, constantly supported as always by the Nerve Centre, who lead the project for us. And really the main focus for Women in the Archives was to bring forward female voices out of the archive, so to give them the prominence and the spotlight that they maybe hadn't had before. And there was lots of different ways that we were going to do this, with exhibitions, which is what I will talk to you a little bit about, a programme of events that we did throughout 2019, and then our community engagement programs, because as Niall said, they are really the heart of what we do in Making the Future, is engaging with communities in Northern Ireland and border counties to see really what is important, to learn from our past, to know about ourselves now, to think about what we want for the future. So the community engagement programs have really been the heart of what we have done, certainly through Prony. And as you can see on this slide, we've had 22 so far, and we're continuing to run them even during lockdown. Virtually, like this is how we're doing it at the moment, and we've done it across lots and lots of different things. We've made films, we've made art pieces, we've done photography projects, digital media projects, and we've had more than 400 participants, aged between 8 years old and 93 years old, so a big age range, all different backgrounds and communities, lots of different ways to engage with people. Some were groups that are already formed and we went to work with them, something that a group wanted to do and we would come and facilitate it. Other ones, like the Dear Diary one that we're talking about tonight, was just an open call that we put out and people came and joined us. Some of them last every day for a week, some of them last 7 weeks, some of them last 10 weeks. lots and lots of different ways that we've been engaging with people over the last sort of coming on 2 years now, which is hard to believe. But when laying the foundation for Dear Diary, it really started way back at the start for Women in the Archives, when we were putting together exhibitions in Prony and in the Linden Hall Library. And we were starting with our first groups, our sort of first pilot engagement groups. And having worked in Prony for the last 7 years, diaries and letters are records that are really, really close to my heart. They're my favorite thing to look at, to catalogue, to read. There's nothing like hearing somebody's experience in their own words. It gives you a whole new view on a certain time period when you read it from a personal perspective. And they've always been a favorite thing of mine. And when we were starting to think about exhibitions, I just wanted to do something with letters and diaries. And then when we started to talk to our early participants, and we had a chat about, you know, what kind of women would they like to hear about or hear from, so many of them said that they didn't want to hear from women who were famous or women who were held any kind of position of power. They wanted to hear stories about women that would reflect their grandmothers, their great-grandmothers' experiences of life. So that was what we started with In Her Words, and we had an exhibition that was led by female voices and their own words through diaries and letters. So we did both diaries and letters, and we had letters from lots of different types of women, immigrant letters, women who wrote to the Prime Minister in desperation, looking for help, sort of in the post-First World War period. Really amazing women who, luckily for us, wrote letters to keep in touch when they were so busy all over the world, with their family and their friends, and other women who might have written to organisations because they were lonely or felt afraid. So there's lots of different reasons why we were looking at letters and diaries, and they were able to tell us lots and lots of different things. As I said, we looked at diaries as well, and that's really what laid the foundation for what would become Dear Diary. As we were doing these diaries, and I was sharing them with our early engagement participants, and they were reading them, and we were getting them to record excerpts out of it for the exhibition, just the connection that we were able to make with these women from their diaries was really, really spectacular. But there was only so much that we could do in an exhibition. Exhibitions can only be so big. So it was always there that after that, we would like to look at diaries in more detail and really allow a group who would participate with us to engage with diaries in a really meaningful way and kind of take on a relationship with these people. As a cataloguer in Prony, certainly that is what happens if you're looking at a collection and there is a lot of correspondence in it, or there's diaries in it. You really start to build a relationship with the person, and there's lots of collections in Prony where I feel personally really connected and protective over the people and whose collections they were, just because I've read their words, I've read their innermost thoughts, and we really wanted to build that connection with people now, with women from the past. So there was a lot to talk about. Obviously in Prony, once I did a good bit of digging in the archives, I was able to find a lot of different diaries from different women across almost 200 years. And I was really pleased with what we were able to pull out from Prony. But what I will say is, it's only what's available in Prony. It's not in any way a full representation of women's history in this part of the world. That's impossible to get just from Prony, because we rely on things that have been deposited to us, which obviously isn't everything. But also, there's lots of reasons why you don't find women's stories as much as, say, you might find men's, particularly when we look at diaries. With letters combined with diaries, we were able to get more of a sense of sort of different classes of women, because even women who were more working class might have put pen to paper to write to the Prime Minister because they were desperate for help. So they have put their thoughts and their feelings and their story down on a piece of paper in that way. Women who keep diaries over time, you're not going to get a full picture of women's experiences, because there's lots of barriers to women actually being able to do that. They're busy working, they're busy caring for their families. A lack of access to education and literacy issues mean that a lot of women might not have been able to actually sit down and keep a diary. But we still felt that it was important to dig out the ones that were there, to allow them to speak for themselves and to bring their voices forward, because a lot of people would have no idea that we were holding so much of this type of women's history within Prony. So we really, really wanted to bring them out. And we've also had a little chat then with all of our participants across all of our programs, but particularly in this one, about then what are we leaving for the future? Do we really keep diaries anymore? Do we write letters anymore? What are we leaving behind so that in 100 years people will know our stories and will be able to find them and know how we felt about things and what we were doing? So we've had a lot of conversations about that. What are we leaving behind and how are we going to look after it? So we were encouraging everybody through our programs, and I will encourage all of you here this evening as well to sometimes just go a little bit old school. I'm all for modern technology. It's great. We can keep in touch so much more than we were able to years ago. And we don't have to write letters to one another. We can text, we can video chat, we can do all of this, and it's great. But if there's someone you care about, write them a letter. If you're living through something significant, which we didn't realize we all would be this year, but we are, why not keep a diary? Why not write it down and keep it to come back on later on? Because you will not regret it, and certainly your ancestors and researchers of the future will love you for doing it. So it was just something that we wanted to plant that idea. It's great that we're able to find all of these voices of these women and bring them forward because they are sitting in the archives, but it's also important to think about the future and what we're going to leave behind for other people. So that was kind of how we got to Dear Diary, was really wanting to bring all of these voices forward. So I had a great time. All my work was before the program even started, which was to go in, find the diaries, find as big a breadth as I could of backgrounds, of time periods, all of that kind of stuff to bring together a really good snapshot of what we are holding in Prony. So that was really my work at the start, and then it all stopped for me. And after that, it's just been really enjoyable. The participants came on board, did all of the reading, the transcribing, connecting, pulling out the quotes, telling us everything, doing research, more research on these women, telling us more than we knew before. And then Laura at the end has done all the work to pull it into a fantastic resource. So I'm going to stop talking now. I'm going to pass over to Laura, and she will take you through exactly how the program worked and exactly what the resource looks like now.
Thank you, Lindsay. Just if you were wondering, did you see like a gray bar at the top of the presentation? If you saw that, you're not going crazy. I don't know why that happened. It happened on my screen as well, and I think with all of your screens, we don't know why that happened. But I think you got to see everything, all the titles and all the pictures on the presentation. So thank you, Lindsay and Niall, for the introductions, and thank you all for turning up tonight. It's great to see 46 people interested in our project, and it's great as well to see a lot of the participants here. So hopefully you'll get to hear from them as well about their experience of the program. So let me share my screen here as well. Hopefully there will be no gray bars this time. Can you all see it okay? For some reason, my Zoom disappeared when I did that.
We can see it okay, Laura?
You can see it okay, right? Just because for some reason my Zoom completely disappeared. I can't see anything. Okay, so what I'm gonna do now is just for the next 10 minutes, I'm gonna just walk you through the program, tell you exactly what happened during the 8 weeks that the participants were with us in Prony. And I'm gonna show you some highlights as well, some of the women that you're gonna see on the web resource. And then after that, I'm gonna walk you through the web resource as well. So you're gonna get a preview tonight. And we'll finish off with the participants sharing their experiences of the program. So as both Lindsay and Niall said, this was one of our community engagement programs. We worked with 17 women. We actually started with 19, but 2 had to pull out during the program. They were recruited via an online open call, so anyone from anywhere could join the program. As it happens with a lot of projects focusing on women's history, we only had women signing up for the program. For some reason, we scare men off. I don't know why. And the participants the program started at the beginning of January, and it went all the way up until the end of February. So that was 8 weeks in total. So they spent 3 hours with us every week, every Thursday morning in Prony. As Lindsay said, it was our last program before the lockdown. And the aim of the program was, first of all, to bring people together in a shared space in Prony, to to explore the diaries from the collections, the ones that Lindsay had pre-selected, and in a way as well share the love for diaries that both Lindsay and I have as well. From the beginning, we wanted to create an online resource that could give sort of like a taster of what's really held in Prony, and also an encouragement to visit Prony. So, for example, on the website, you're not going to see the full diaries because we want to engage with a selection of boats and then come to Prony to see the diaries in full. And also give the participants a chance to enhance or to develop research skills as well. And just to say as well that a lot of our work, both the exhibition that Lindsay put together last year that inspired this program, but this program as well, were very much inspired by Brona, she was not only one of the participants in the project, but she was also one of the facilitators, and she helped us plan the project as well. And her diary, the diary she wrote when she was 13 in 1981, also features in the timeline as well. So Brona had many different roles in this project, and you're going to hear from her later as well. And she was a very, very big inspiration for a lot of the things that we do as part of Women in the Archives. So, so what I'll do now is I'm going to try to play back a video just to give a bit of like a sense of the behind the scenes, and I hope that my internet connection is going to be good enough.
That's better.
So it's a very exciting project, really. These women are a great bunch. We're very excited to be working with them. They're going to be given a diary each to transcribe within Prony, and then we're going to do something really exciting with it.
So our Dear Diary group are back in Prony this week to start actually doing some work on the diaries. They had a behind the scenes tour of Prony this morning, and now they're all in the reading room here. I don't know if you can see them starting to get to grips with the diaries and the transcriptions. They've seen this morning all the work that goes into looking after these diaries, and now they're going to help us to make them more accessible.
These fabulous women have been amazing. They have dug deep. They have researched and read and got very emotionally involved with their women, which is lovely. We've had people go to graves, go to houses. We've had women try to find other women to talk to, and I think there's been a real bond here in this project. Some of them are going to go on and keep going with diaries. Some of them are going to go and make Hollywood movies about their women, which we really would love to see. So we'll keep going with diaries some way or another.
Did it work now? At the
Yes.
very end? Yes. Oh, happy days. Okay. Right. So hopefully that gave you just like a little flavor of what happened during the 8 weeks. So let me just share my screen again. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you who you will see in our Dear Diary website. Give me 1 second. Can you all see my screen okay now? There you go. Can you all see it okay? Yeah?
Yep.
Yeah, for
Yep,
some
that's all
reason,
fine. Yep.
again, Zoom disappeared and I can't see absolutely anyone. Yeah, so these are all the diaries that you're gonna see if you go onto our website. And as Lindsay said, she tried to include a wide range of perspectives and topics. So you're gonna see women writing about war and conflict, and the earliest diary that we have on the timeline is from 1798. And then you have the likes of Brona's diary, which is the most recent one that we have included, that is from 1981. You also have women writing about really mundane everyday things, like I went shopping, I went to church, but also, which also gives like a very good view of life in Northern Ireland at a particular time. We have the more poetic and the more reflexive, and we also have young girls writing about travels and their social lives. So, as I said, Elizabeth Richards, her diary is the earliest one that we have on the timeline. You also have people like J.P. Smiles, that she was a young girl documenting a family trip to Switzerland. Very, very hard to find information about her other than what you actually find in Prony. Emma Duffin, who would be probably the most kind of like the biggest celebrity in our timeline. She was a VAD nurse during both the First and the Second World War, and her diaries are quite famous. There have been books written about her. There was also another lady called Una Jonkada Haldane, who actually Brona was the researcher in charge of her, and Brona can tell us a little bit more about her. But I find her writing style really, really funny. So she would say things like, you know, that hot water bottles give her more comfort than a husband, which probably is true. And she's writing about being in Italy during the Second World War. She was from here. Eva Chichester, who was a Sunday school teacher, but she was also a very, very talented photographer. And her 1940 diary gives sort of like a snapshot of life, mostly around the Newcastle area, around that period of time. Roberta Hewitt, the wife of John Hewitt, but she was also much more than that as well. She was a socialist, she was a volunteer for many, many different causes. And in her diary is a very, very private and a very, very powerful diary as well. And Brona, as I said, she is the inspiration for this project, and she multitasked during the project, and her diary is the most recent one that we have on the timeline. So I'll give you a quick preview now of the timeline, so you see how the website works, and you can see all the hard work from the participants. So as the video said, the participants, they came to Prony. They were each assigned a diary, and they were asked to read the diaries, transcribe as much as they could, and we gave them the really, really hard task of selecting up to 12 quotes from the diaries, and we saw how painful it was for a lot of them. And the reason why we wanted to create, as I said earlier, a resource that would just give people a flavor of the diary and of the amazing collections that you can find in Prony. So if you go to our website, makingthefuture.eu/dear-diary, it's within the Making the Future website. So even if you just go to makingthefuture.eu, you can see here at the top of the menu, you can find the link for it. So it's embedded on the website. So if you click on View Timeline, you'll be taken to the timeline. So there are two ways of navigating around the website. So the first one is through what we call our main timeline, which has been developed very much like in a diary style that follows, you know, a calendar structure, you know, a monthly structure from January to December. And then if you scroll down, you will see within kind of like each month that you're going to see different quotes from different diarists writing from different years. So you have a quote from the 3rd of January 1943, then you have another one that goes all the way up to 73 and so forth. So the idea behind that was sort of like to give that that sense of history. You know, has much changed over the years? Have things been pretty much the same? What were people up to across different years? Were they doing the same things? Were they doing different things? So if you think, for example, September, if we were to look at the month of September, so basically what you do is if you just keep scrolling down, you're going to see the quotes that were selected by the participants, and then you can keep going forward with the months. So I'm just going to open a new window here to go to September, because we are in September. So let's say, for example, if you want to see what people are writing about today, so let's go to keep scrolling down and see if we can find the 22nd of September. So there is a quote here by Emma Duffin, and she is writing about her experience as a nurse, and she was in Egypt on that day, wishing that she was anywhere else but Egypt. You can read the quote that the participant selected, but you can also hear a recording of the participant just reading the quote aloud. So again, just another way of navigating and engaging with the content. And if you keep scrolling down a little bit more, you're going to see a couple of images of Emma, of what she's talking about, but also of the diary page as well. So you can try to read her lovely handwriting. So that's really how one of the ways the timeline work. I don't know about yourselves, but every time I get a diary, I generally go straight to sort of like the month of February. I was born in February, and I always want to see what people are writing on my birthday. So So yeah, so we just wanted to do like a different approach to, to a timeline, instead of going the usual, the chronological timeline, starting with the earliest diary up until the latest diary. We wanted to be a little bit more playful and to get people to see history sort of like side by side and to think about, like how things changed. And even when you think about, September 2020, September 2019, life has changed so much. We didn't have a pandemic back then. So yeah, so just have that sense of looking back in history in that sort of like that different way. And then a second way of navigating through the timeline, if you keep scrolling down within the main monthly timeline, you're going to see a section called Meet the Diaries. And this is the second way of navigating through the diary, Dear Diary. So here you're going to find a profile page for all the diaries, all the 17 diaries that you find on the timeline. And let's say you saw that quote from Emma Duffin, you're very interested in Second World War and First World War, and you want to see what else Emma have said, and you want to stay with Emma for now. So if you click on View More, it's going to take you to her bio page. And again, there is a gallery with different images of Emma and also of her diary. And if you keep scrolling down, you're going to see an audio recording reading the bio aloud, but also the researcher also left a note sharing her experience of researching Emma and also transcribing the diary. So I strongly encourage you to listen to the researchers talking about the process, because I think the product is as interesting as the process. And each diarists have sort of like a timeline for themselves as well, with only their quotes. So so you can follow her, you can stay with her in her diary if you prefer to navigate through the timeline that way. So, and it works the same way with with clicking on the finding more, and then you have the quote, the audio, and the images. So 2 different ways of navigating through the timeline. And if you keep scrolling down as well, you can go to the next diarist, you can go back to the previous one, and you can also return to that main timeline that has, the quotes side by side, different years and different diaries. And just scrolling down as well, you can see a section called Research Diaries. And this is where we have a video documenting the whole program. Again, as interesting as the result as well, because you can see their work in progress. And as Brona said on the video as well, they're sort of like attachment to the diaries and all the emotions and everything that was included. So just to wrap up, before I hand it over to them, just to share with you just some thoughts as we went along in terms of, going from archive to creating a web resource. As Lindsay said, with women's history, there is a wide range of perspectives. There are gaps, and in some cases as well, the participants did find very, very hard to find information about, about their diaries. So for us, it was very important to tell the participants to not give up, but also to think about what's there and what's not there. And also the importance of cross-checking, fact-checking, copyright, and keeping track of their research process and the sources that they're using. And that's very important when creating a web resource like this one. In terms of the content creation, like I said before, we gave them the nearly impossible task of going from a big diary into 6 to 12 entries per diarist, and that was very painful. And they had to be very mindful as well about issues such as data protection. So for example, Brona's diary is a very recent one. People are still alive, so abbreviating names when we were transferring from her diary to to the website, that was an important thing to keep in mind. Spelling and grammar as well. Some of the diaries, they don't have perfect grammar, perfect spelling, and for us it was very important to leave it as is, and not try to change that, because it says a lot about a person, the way the person writes. And we only made some minor changes just to improve readability, but we tried to keep it as sort of like as hands-off as possible. And just to finish off as well, I think that the program was really about getting people to think about who writes diaries and why do we write diaries, and also that discussion around the public and the private. Diaries are written for ourselves. So what happens when they come to an archive, and then the archive takes them and put them up, or parts of them up, on a web resource as well. So So that's interesting in itself. The different writing styles, as I said earlier, they have, you know, some diaries that were more introspective, they were really themselves with their own thoughts, and others, they're writing, you know, describing what they're seeing, because there is a sense of, you know, we're living history. And also thinking about, as Lindsay said, not only with this project, but all our projects, you know, thinking about today, you know, how are we preserving the history today? You know, is it through Instagram stories? Is it through blogs? You know, how are we going to preserve all of those things? Are we losing, you know, part of the way we're living? So, so yeah, so that's pretty much kind of like part of the process. It was really to get, you know, participants to think about all of those issues, not just, you know, engaging with the women and their words, but thinking about opening up to more discussions as well. So that's me for now. Did I forget to include anything, Lindsay, or is that everything?
No, that was good. There's just a question in the chat that I'll just answer now before we move on any further. Pam had asked, how do the diaries get donated to the archive? So how did they end up in Prony? And a lot of people don't realise that Prony not only is the official archive for Northern Ireland and looks after all of our official records, but we also accept records from private depositors. So all of those diaries have been deposited mainly by the family or the person themselves, and that's how they've ended up in Prony. They've donated them as part of a collection, and then we have them available there. So they've mostly all been donated by either the person themselves or their family members at some point.
Thank you. Yeah, so as I said, it was a community engagement program, and all the hard work, like 90% of the hard work, was done by the participants, because reading those diaries, transcribing them, selecting the quotes, that was really the hard work. Creating the website compared to that was nothing, because you have to work through, you know, the different writing styles, and you have to make the really, really tough decision about, you know, not only selecting the quotes that spoke, you know, to you, but also quotes that would have a meaning to someone that wasn't involved in the project as well. So you had really the tough work, whereas Lindsay and I, we just sat and just enjoyed, you know, seeing all your suffering while you were trying to select the quotes. So can we open to you guys and maybe hear your thoughts and your comments on the program? Can we put Brona first on the spotlight? Yes.
Well, so I will tell you, Laura was saying about every time she gets a diary, I do the same thing. I look at whatever day it is that day that I've opened it, and I look at my own birthday. And when Brona's diary first came to Prony way back when we were doing the exhibition, I did the same thing with her diary. When she brought it in, I looked at the day that it was, and then I looked at my own birthday, and as I opened it, it said my birthday across the top, and it took me a minute for it to drop that Brona and I have got the same birthday. And I would never have known that if I hadn't went and looked at my own birthday up in her diary. So that was how I first knew that Brona and I have a connection, that we have the same birthday.
So Brona, we're going to mute you, and if you want to say a few words as well.
Okay. Hi everybody. First of all, it's lovely to see all those faces. I have missed my women so much, and it's just really nice to see you all. So thank you for that. And I really think Laura's kind of playing down the amount of work that has gone into that website, because as you can tell, that is an amazing amount of work, and it looks fabulous. So thank you for that. I mean, I don't want to say too much other than, you know, when I dug the diary out and decided to do some fun things with it, I had no idea this would be something that would happen. But I did, thinking about all the different things that people wanted to do with the diary. There were lots of different things going around about, you know, making TV shows and doing things like that. But what I wanted to do with it was use it as a way, not to sound too like precocious or anything, but to use it as a way to bring that time back to life, and then maybe bring other times back to life. So this idea of a timeline of just women's words, so that you can stick on one day and see how women in different generations were experiencing that time of their lives is wonderful. It's a very emotive experience, I think, to hear those voices coming back to life. So this has been just a dream for me, absolutely. I'm so happy to see it come through. And will I talk a little bit about my woman, because I really loved my woman. Okay. My woman was Una Giaconata Haldane, originally from Benburb, but whose family ended up living on the Antrim Road. And thanks to Colette, one of our ladies who walked past the house and photographed it for me, which is the kind of thing that we all ended up doing, really. Una was amazing, but I didn't think she started out that way, and I think that was the joy of unraveling the diary. She was in Milan because she was married to an Italian. He was there during World War II, so she was there during the reign of Mussolini. And she started off talking about how, you know, her hair was a mess and she couldn't get olive oil, and the various things that, you know, she was talking about life in Milan and how hard it was under, well, I guess under effectively a lockdown of sorts, you know. So, but as time went on, the diary took part over about 3 or 4 years of her life. She evolved as a person and as a woman to, by the end of the diary, she was actually smuggling English servicemen across the Italian border to safety, away from the regime of Mussolini, as it was all crumbling in 1944, towards the start of 1945. She went through a massive evolution as a person. And what was great about having her diary in Prony was not only did we have her diary, but there was also a letter from one of the servicemen whose life she saved. And that was just amazing to have that kind of, to have the access to be able to piece together what happened, not only from her point of view and taking the chance of smuggling these men, but I'm also a man who became free, who lived because of what she did. And each of the women has just got some moment like that in the diary where you're just like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And for me, that was the joy. It didn't always have to be big things like that. She was hysterically funny, as Laura was saying. And you know, there was something lovely about just her the mundanity of life as well, because those are the things that we relate to. So it was a real juxtaposition of the big stuff and the little stuff, which makes a diary so special, I think. And this is really exciting. And thank you, girls, for letting me be a part of it. I'm dying to see my women again. I want to see you all. And I hope we can make that happen, because this was just wonderful, a wonderful project.
Thank you, Brona. Can I just say something that was really bizarre? I think Una's kind of sense of humor and even like writing style is very similar to yours.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Yes, in terms of like the way that we paired.
She's quite irreverent. Yeah. Yeah. She definitely, there was a lot of her things about, you know, at just some point she was just like, all I want is a damn cup of Irish tea. And I was like, oh, you know, I relate. I so relate, you know. So yeah, she was great for me. She was the perfect match.
And that was completely by chance as well, because the way that we assigned the diaries was we put them on a table, each of the diaries on a table, and we asked the participants to just take a seat, and then whoever they were set with, that's the diary they're going to stay for the rest of their lives, so they didn't have a choice. And it was really, really interesting to see that, you know, that how the participants found a lot of commonalities, you know, or a lot of how do you say it, yeah, the like connections as well. And again, as we said, we assigned them completely like in a very random way, and it was interesting to see how much, you know, how many connections were made. So can I ask Joanna to say a few words as well? I'm going to mute you there, Joanna. Can you hear me okay? You're going to be getting an invite to mute us. Yes, yeah. I can hear you.
I'm here. So I'm looking at the TV and myself here, so better look to the camera. Yeah, just exactly what you were saying, Laura. The way the diaries were assigned was totally random, and yet the woman that I got, it turned out that I had quite a lot of connections with her. It was really, really bizarre. My lady was Ruth Duffin, and she was brought up in North Belfast. And bizarrely, when she wrote the diary, she was living in a house which was opposite my old primary school. And I can remember at primary school looking across the road from the gates to this massive old house, which isn't there anymore, obviously, and wondering who must have lived in there. And weirdly, it was Ruth. And other connections as well with Ruth. I found I as I read through her diary, there were lots of things that looked vaguely familiar. So I Googled them and discovered that they were referring to parts of Belfast, like old houses in Belfast and old streets and old churches. And her cousin, that she belonged to a very influential family. And they, you know, she was in high society. She went to lots of parties. She was trying to get married, obviously, to lots of soldiers. She never turned out in the end. She never actually got married in the end to any of them. And she went to all these parties in places, again, that are only names to us in Belfast, like Danesfort, and she was going to Parkmount, and then she went on a grand tour of Europe. And some of her diary entries are so funny because they're just like TripAdvisor entries that you would get nowadays, you know, where she was talking about how, you know, in the hotel they stayed in, that, you know, they put the mirrors in the darkest corner of the room, you know, how you expect to see yourself and all that sort of thing. It was really funny. And some of the places that she'd visited in, she went to Germany and Holland, but to Germany, some of the places she'd visited were places that I had actually visited too in Bavaria. And one of the places was a little village, and how she described it was exactly how I remembered it. So it hadn't changed at all, the walls of the village and the tower. And she talked about a poem, which again I had to Google. It was The Lady of Shalott. And okay, it was a really amazing diary. And I have discovered, you know, since I was doing the research, that she had lots of other diaries. The diary I read was 1903, 1904, but she went on to write other diaries. And her cousin, Effie Sinclair, who's mentioned, there seemed to be some sort of a rift between her and the two families, which is, I think, alluded to very slightly in the future, the diaries that are later than that. So it'd be really interesting to go back and have a look at it. But it was bizarre that there were so many connections. And I think it was maybe the North Belfast connection that sort of like resonated with me. And the randomness of the choice of the diary was amazing. So I was going through the quotes last night. I was just reading over it again last night, and it just was fantastic. So really enjoyed it. And Lindsay, you're talking about writing that diary. Well, I had written in my little spiel, I think maybe I should start keeping the diary. Well, when lockdown happened, that's when I started writing my diary. So I wrote my diary for about 3 or 4 months, then I stopped it. But I think maybe I should start writing it again, because it's really interesting to look back on things that, you know, you might have written, because there was something on Twitter, people were looking for poems or something, and I remembered a poem I'd heard over lockdown, so I was able to look up my diary and see what was that poem, you know. So diaries, I could recommend them.
I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you so much. And I think honestly, everybody kind of talked about the weird connections with the diaries, and we did assign them so randomly, but I think it speaks to the connection that you make when you fully immerse yourself in someone's life in that way, and you read their diaries in that kind of detail. You will find those connections there. As random as it might seem, it's the connection that you build with someone when you really immerse yourself in that kind of record. I think it really speaks to the importance of diaries that happened for so many of our participants. I've seen another question in the chat. Thank you all so much for all of your really lovely comments in the chat, by the way. This is really lovely. The participants who took part, it was just an open call, so we just decided that we wanted to do this, and we put a call out to people to get involved. So no, it wasn't anybody in particular that had history backgrounds or anything like that. It was just anybody that thought it sounded interesting, and we were lucky that we got a group of really amazing women to take part. Couldn't have been better for Laura or myself, the group that we did get, but it was just done by an open call, and it was fantastic.
Just to make a comment as well about Ruth Duffin. We also have, as I said, Emma Duffin, who is her sister. She's also on the timeline, and also Maria Duffin, who is the mother, and also Molly Duffin, who is another sister. So we have the Duffin, some of the Duffin family in the timeline. And one of the conversations we had during the program was that this is a Hollywood film waiting to be made, keeping up with the Duffins or something about the Duffins, because their diaries and the things that they write in their diaries, my goodness, there is an amazing film there. And so if there's any filmmaker here or any funders, yes, there is a Hollywood film there, and yeah, plenty to get from their diaries. Could we move to Colette? Colette she was the only one who had the privilege of actually engaging with her diarist, because the diarist is alive and well. So Colette, do you want to share with us a little bit about your experience of reading Brona's diary and and working with her diary? I'm going to unmute you there. Can you unmute yourself?
Yes, I'm live, yeah. Thanks very much, Laura. It's just lovely to see everyone again. It's lovely to see Brona. How are you? I just so loved being involved in the project, and I'd like to congratulate Laura and Lindsay and the Nerve Centre and Prony, everyone who was involved. It was amazing to be involved in it, but now when we see the website, it just looks like something we want to delve into and find out more about. And I know that my friends and people of my generation who, were around at the same time as Brona, are very keen to find out about her diary and all of the other people that were involved. So I really enjoyed it. I applied to join the project, not really knowing what I was letting myself in for. I just thought I'd do something different and just get away from the mundane life that I'm leading here and work. But it was so nice to meet the other women involved, and I'm sorry we just didn't get more time to spend together, but we did have great days gossiping and drinking tea and chatting, and of course doing the work that Lindsay and Laura set for us as well, in different times. Well, in terms of the project, we were a group, I thought, of very different women, different ages, from different backgrounds, and the diarists as well were the same. It was very varied in terms of social class and age and when the diaries were actually written. I guess most of the diaries I felt were of an older time. Most of them have been written in the mid-1900s, except one. Most of the diarists had since passed away, except one. And who did I get from my diary? Except one. So when I sat down to open the diary that I had in front of me, it was in fact, of course, Brona's diary. I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit intimidated when I realised that Brona was in the group as well. And I did take a step back here, but it was all fine. She couldn't have been more supportive. And it turned out it was really lovely, because whenever I, there was very little trouble reading it actually, because it was pretty clear. But when I needed something explained, Brona was there to answer the questions and help me out. So it was a bit surreal having the diarist there with you when all the other women in the group were talking about these ladies who'd long since passed away. But nevertheless, it was really enjoyable. I loved reading about her life as a 13-year-old in 1981, because it was kind of the same sort of life that I had because of around about the same age. I was reading about the dog, the animals, mum and dad, her brother and sister. I feel I kind of got to know them all. I feel I could sit down and have a chat with Eileen because I know so much about her. So I really enjoyed it. And of course, school and boys and the disco and domestic science. Who liked domestic science? I was rubbish at it as well. So I completely got it and resonated with Brona. And I feel another thing that I found a big contrast in was we were both growing up during the Troubles, and I thought when I was young, growing up during the Troubles, that everybody's life was the same as mine, and that everybody was locked down in an interface in North Belfast. And when I read Brona's diary, it just dawned on me there were lots of other children in Northern Ireland having a completely different experience. And Brona's diary felt to me like she was very cosmopolitan, because she was living in a rural, semi-rural area around, I think it was Newry, And she was travelling to Dublin all the time. And when I was reading this in the diary, I thought, oh, I never got to Dublin when I was that age. So it was lovely to see the similarities and to see the contrasts and the music. Adam Ant, Carly Simon, Duran Duran, all part of my life at that time as well. So I can honestly say I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a pleasure in the end, after I got over the shock that she might be looking over my shoulder at the quotes that I'm picking out, but in the end it was great. Oh, and finally, I must mention scrapbooking. Who knew scrapbooking was a thing? I had never heard of scrapbooking, never mind making it into a verb. I barely knew of a scrapbook. So the girls, Laura and Lindsay, as part of the project, organised for us to scrapbook at the end, and I just took to it like a duck to water. I really should have been on Blue Peter. In another world, I would have been in there. So I really enjoyed putting all that information together and cutting bits out of magazines and putting photographs together just to pull it all together in the end. Overall, it was a great project. It was a pleasure working with all of the ladies involved, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. So congratulations to everybody, and thanks very much for being part of it with me.
Thank you, Colette.
Thank you very much, Colette. Just conscious that it's 8 o'clock. Do the other participants want to say anything? I saw there was a comment on the chat about Roberta Hewitt, and we have the researcher here with us. Can I put you on the spot there, Kelly?
Sorry, Kelly.
Sorry.
Hi.
Sorry.
I got Roberta Hewitt, and it just felt like fate, because I'm a writer and she was a writer's wife. And it's like Lindsay says, you do get completely drawn into their lives and you start to really see them as real people and start to care about them. And I still think about her and like compare my life to hers all the time. And I just thought it was fascinating because, I mean, the fact that John Hewitt's words are everywhere in Northern Ireland. I mean, there's even a massive John Hewitt poem up on the wall in Prony, and yet Roberta Hewitt's words are kind of locked in the vaults and nobody knows them and they're not published anywhere, and you know, no one knows they exist. So I thought that was really interesting, and I would love to do something that would make them more visible to people, because lots of people are interested in the Hewitts, but you only ever really hear about him. So, which I think is the case for a lot of the women. So yeah, I thought that was really fascinating that I got her diary.
Thank you, Kelly. And it shows as well that there is always a great woman. Behind every man, there is a great woman, you know, and I think Roberta is definitely the great example of that. Right. Can I put the other two participants who are here with us tonight on the spot as well? Do you want to say a few words, maybe Jeanette or Linda? Do you mind? Yes, they're a part of the Duffin family as well. So we have Maria Duffin here with us, and we have Molly Duffin. So we go to Maria Duffin first. So Jeanette, do you want to share with us your journey?
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, no problem. Yes, so I got Maria Duffin. So she was the mother of Molly, Ruth and Emma. And there was another one beginning with a C. I can't remember now. So, but I think when we all got the diaries, we didn't realise. So we'd started reading them, and then we all went around the table and everybody said who they'd got. And I said, oh my goodness, I'm your mother, which made it even more emotionally charged for me anyway. And Maria was such a lovely woman. But whenever I was reading her diary, she was turning 99 years old. And it took me a while to actually realise she was pretty much bedridden and lived up in her bedroom. So everything she was seeing was kind of through her daughter's eyes and the things they were getting up to, and the views from the window and the flowers and the gifts that people brought her and things that were happening in the news. But pretty much she lived in her bedroom, so which was actually in University Street near the Ulster Museum where I work. So I went round to the house to see, and then I was able to look up at the window to sort of see the view that she would have had, which was lovely. Just it made it even more personal. I found the whole thing very emotional, which I didn't think I would. I mean, there was a couple of times I was in tears. One time, luckily, Brona was there and was able to give me a hug, which you can't do now. Thank goodness she did, because I got her diary from the next year when she turned 100. And as soon as she turned 100, she said, that's me finished. I'm 100 years old and that's my story done. And that was her last diary and her last entry. And it was very emotional, and it was great to meet everybody as well. That's
Thank you very much. Linda, you were Molly Duffin, and I think Molly, she was the youngest of all of our writers. I think she was 18 or 19 when she was writing in her diary.
Yeah, it was quite strange because you were given the diary and you sort of started reading the first couple of pages and you thought, what is this? Because I didn't know the connections with all the Duffins, and as we started to talk together, it filtered through that all these connections were there, and it was lovely to hear from the other participants just how that dovetailed with my story. And it was very heartwarming because on the very first page, as I read, there was a lady mentioned who was one of Molly's friends when she visited Germany, and it was Grace English, and that is the name of my mum. And it just was astounding, to me to have that on the very first page, and it sort of carried me all the way through that connection. And Molly's journey through Germany as a young teenager really was amazing, because she was mixing in high society. She met the Kaiser and his wife, and she was going to these amazing castles and the Black Forest and meeting up with all sorts of people, people with sabots on and people in horses and black hats and cloaks and things. So it was quite exciting and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And it was the connections with the ladies that really sort of emphasized the whole story and helped me. I thoroughly enjoyed the whole experience, I really did.
Thank you very much, Linda. Right, so it's nearly 8:10. We're a little bit over time. Just to say a big thank you to all the participants for all the hard work, and I hope you're as proud of the website as we are, and we hope you're going to be spreading the word as well. And to everyone who turned up tonight, thank you so much for skipping your dinner to be with us for an hour. You can all go back and have your dinner, or if you're in America, maybe it's a bit too early for dinner.
Stacey, it's 5 a.m.
It's 5 a.m. Yeah, okay. So
Australia, so thank you for joining us at 5 a.m. I really appreciate it. But yeah, honestly, I will say personally for me, a huge thank you to all of you for really making a dream that I've had in Prony for a long time come true. I really am so passionate about these kinds of records and the powerful words that are in them and how they can make people feel. And thanks to all of our participants for signing up and for doing the work and for making all of those mornings that we spent together so enjoyable. I have never enjoyed my work so much, and I have a lovely job. I enjoy my work a lot, but I have never enjoyed it as much as I did when we were all spending time together. And a huge thank you to my colleague Laura for pulling it together into such a fantastic resource. It really is like a dream come true for me. I've thought about it for such a long time that I would love to see something like this. And thank you all so much for putting the work in and making it happen, and it was a privilege to work with all of you. And thanks to everyone else who joined us from all over the world this evening. That's fantastic, and I really hope that you will be able to pass some of the time in this strange time that we're living in, whether we're going to be in or out of lockdown. You can pass the time by going through the website, and there really is lots to discover, and Laura's done a fantastic job with it, so thank you very, very much.
And could I just say as well, feel free to email us with your thoughts on the website as well, of things that are working well, things that could have been done in a better way as well. We always like getting some feedback too. So right, so have a lovely evening or morning or afternoon, whatever in the globe you are. And thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to the participants again. Hopefully see you all soon.
Thank you. Bye.